This is our story of Mark Oliphant College. It's actually 5 years old now, but what we had never done before this course was actually try and coherently and cogently put our narrative together, and that was actually our reason for the course. The school started in 2010 and we were built to replace 5 failing schools. As you'll see through the slides, we were to replace schools in the poorest urban area of South Australia. The purpose of the new school from the politicians' point of view was unequivocally to change the outcomes in a community characterised by multi-generational poverty. We're talking 4 or 5 generations. Interestingly, in terms of location, the decision was made before our time to move the school slightly out of the territory of the old schools. As you can see from the map, a new community was to be built around the school. It also meant that the prejudices of who went to the old school were actually left slightly behind. The other design principle at the start was a school within a school, a village of schools. There were 3 other key developments: that the buildings would have some new architecture, there'd be key leadership appointments headhunted, and we'd have a commitment to ICT. What that meant, nobody really knew. But everything else was the same. At the beginning, the staff, students, and the community were exactly the same. We also believe the school should reflect a community, so should go from littlest to big kids. That's always been a fundamental of ours, that when you actually have younger and older children, there is a natural looking after and caring that happens. The other thing that came about is just simply because of the buildings that we had to be about innovation. We had to look about more than structures and approaches and a different way of thinking. Some of that different way I think we're making up as we go along, and as I said, the purpose of this course was to put far more thinking and design principles behind it. For us, innovative space is more than just the physical space. It's the digital, the virtual, the learning spaces and the professional spaces. To talk about the physical spaces, the first thing you can see in this picture are the hills. The old school, which is only a kilometre away, you could look at the hills as well. But because of the design and the depression, nobody ever looked up to look at the hills. The school is around a circle, and in the middle of that circle we call it the village green, where everybody can meet. It's a covered walkway, and we like to think that on the good day it's like the Champs-Élysées, you could pass anyone on the walkway. The buildings are arranged in age group or stage group to support learning, but the specialist facilities should be available to all children at different times of the day. The 4 sub-schools are a village of schools, and they are actually identified with their own team of leadership and staff and their own uniform colour, although the style is the same, the red, white, blue and grey. And the model is that they all operate on the same principles, yet there's differences. So our children and their families identify with these smaller sub-schools. These sub-schools are about 400 to 500 students now. Within the sub-schools, the teachers work in even smaller teams. So there's less children for each teacher, less teachers for the children, less movement, less choice. We have no choice from reception to year 9 about what you study, and there's more time and more depth for all subjects. Please remember, we have failed every standardised testing score. But some physical design principles are interesting, and the gentleman in the picture is Professor Stephen Heppel, who has had a huge effect on what we do. That in each classroom, each learning area, there are 3 points of view. Kids not only have a whiteboard to look at, they have other things that are going to be interesting. That there's fun, there's literacy and numeracy everywhere, the hip-hop principle of keeping it fresh, and those things must be changed. That 3-dimensional spaces, we don't use enough of the ceilings, we don't use enough of having higher chairs, that we must use the outside, that everything is visible. There are no closed doors, there are glass windows and glass doors everywhere, so you can't cover them with posters. Everything must be visible and public, and you can write on the walls and you can write on the washable desks and the washable walls. The learning spaces, if you look at the middle, there are commons. They're a general area with classrooms around the outside. In the early years, it's about play. It's about kids learning oral language through play, about collaboration. In the primary years, we think it's all about adventure, and so we have things that are much higher, much more exciting with big. In the middle years, which is years 7, 8 and 9 for us, it's about structure. That's also a systemic point of view because we have to take in another 100 children at year 8, and we don't know those kids. And although they all want to come to our school and we're oversubscribed, the issue is They actually don't know what they're getting into. And the senior years is adult learning principles, and it looks more like a coffee lounge or Chibos. And as you can see, here are some pictures of kids, different spaces, different times. You can adapt them, you can change, you can ride on glass, you can sit on high chairs, you can sit on low. But the outside spaces are also very important. When we were built, and if you're building a new school, think of this, we didn't have any trees, and so we had to make things different. So we have forests of signs, we have different ways of looking at things. We've brought colour and vibrancy, and we'd hope at some stages beauty into their lives. So we do signs that are motivational, we do signs that are fun, we do signs that are actually about information, about that we are not that far from Adelaide, we're not that far from Sydney, we're not that far from San Diego, we're not that far from London, we are a long way from the moon. And so there are pictures and signage everywhere. But the public spaces also must be filled with fun and celebration, whether it be from seeing a Tyrannosaurus Rex come around the corner or to actually having the exhibitions of learning up all over the school, or now about a positive achievement foyer. Digital space. We believe we had to use the technology to level the playing field. These are children, many of whom still do not have wireless networks at home, and most of their stuff is done on their phones. There's a process in Australia about how you actually give out laptops for a one-to-one iPad and laptop school. The kids don't pay for them. They pay no fees. We have to work out how to fund them. What you're normally meant to do is a whole lot of stuff of training with the staff. We worked out that that was hopeless. We did actually start with just giving the power and the laptops to the kids. The rules of the school have been developed. First of all, ask a colleague. If they don't know how to do something, ask a kid, or thirdly, YouTube it. You'll find the answer there as well. But with their own device and the children have their own entitlement. The students are at the centre of their own learning. It was very, very scary that we'd actually be giving kids the ability at our school to be on the internet all the time, doing all the things we heard that they shouldn't be doing. We also use virtual media, social media, Facebook, Twitter. Our community is not a big Twitter community, but it's a massive Facebook community. And so we send all our messages out, not only in the normal ways, but by Facebook. We believe social media is changing everything, and we've decided to incorporate it, because if we don't use technology as a tool to redesign schools as we know them will not exist in 20 years. That may be a good or a bad thing. But we want people to dream big. We wanted our children to have a sense of entitlement, excitement, engagement, and believe that they can always be part of the school. So we have system requirements. We're a state school, so there are things that we have to do. And we've combined that with the concept of make learning better. And they've been the two biggest people that have influenced us are Stephen Heppell and High Tech High. So we have to have explicit teaching. We're into makerspace. So there's a product. There are exhibitions and presentations, and they are now moments that the whole community can come to. We've never underestimated the concept of having everyone on the spot at the same time and being part of that, and community partnerships and celebrations. The other big thing was professional space. We have very little ability to hire our own teachers. So we have to think about how do we actually tell our story that there are no self-employed teachers. We're all part of a team from 2 to 3 people to the 170 on site, and we are valued professionals, and we will do that. So a massive induction and mentoring program, heavily influenced by the Odyssey at High Tech High and the 3-year program at Cramlington. That we have professional learning times, geek times, show days, that we spend heavily on sending people to conferences and having people come to us, that we have characteristics of a mock teacher that we've developed with the staff about how we will behave professionally and personally, that we also now think of ourselves as a learning school with such a young staff. We're going to lose them. So we want them to be the best people they can possibly be. So having them accredited training, the Master of Ed, having conferences and teacher teams. So the future is now for us. And so this whole course for us has been about trying to develop who and what we are and be able to tell our story. So our vision now, written after working through this course, is to be recognised as a school that believes that the future is now in education and delivers on that belief. That our mission is to make learning better for all in this digitally enhanced age to enable the development of high achieving students and staff. That our principles, we've actually confined what the 4 key principles are, and obviously there's a lot of writing behind this. There are schools within a school. that innovation is a cornerstone of our practice, that our strong connections with community, the local, the education and the global, and we believe that our students can and will achieve irrespective of their background, and we're going to make that happen. And thank you from Mock for allowing us to be part of the course.